Hey everyone, welcome to the show, episode 30, SANFL History. So today's show, we're going to talk about the history of the SANFL. It's going to be a bit of a long one. I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to start with the first lot of years within the 1800s. So it was 1877. The first football association within Australia. The South Australian Football Association, SAFA, was established on April 30th in 1877. This makes the South Australian National Football League, the SANFL, not only the oldest surviving football league of any code within the nation, but also one of the oldest football competitions within the whole world. So that's quite an interesting stat to start off with the show, and shows you how much we hold this competition in higher regard. So that starts us off quite well. Obviously, SAFA formed into the SANFL and still kept all its history. So, in 1877, there were instigators that formed this great league within South Australia. There was Noel Twopenny at the Adelaide FC, Joseph Osborne at Woodville FC, so FC obviously stands for Football Club, George Kennedy at South Adelaide FC were the instigators of the formation of the South Australian Football Association, SAFA. So we'll just quickly have a read about what these guys did. And there was a book, Richard Ernast, Noel Twopenny, the South Australian Football Pioneer. The important contribution of Richard Edward Noel Twopenny to the development of the South Australian football. The game has emerged to develop profiles through many of the newspaper reports resounding around the game. Richard Ernast Noel Twopenny has certainly shone through the most significant role in leading the initiative to establish a significant role in the association of the clubs and as a major player of the 1876 and the 1877 seasons. In my view, Twopenny, as the leader of the move from SAFA in the April 1877 season, together with the other initiatives, should be considered as a significant contributor to the development of football within South Australia. Along with his two colleagues, Osborne and Kennedy, Twopenny was the leader of the group and indicated a letter to the Express and the Telegraph on the Tuesday of April 24th. His involvement was short, just from 1876 to 1877, but the outcome of his participation was great in the monumental shift from club-based matches to administrated association. So going from obviously just random matches that were just, having a kick after having a few drinks at the pub, they moved into create a proper competition and a formation of an association. So these are what they were called back in those days. They used quite pronounced type words that formed. Obviously now we call it a league, obviously the AFL Australian Football League. And that's how the wording's changed. So Twopenny joined the Adelaide Football Club, which is not the Adelaide Football Club we know of today, that were created later on, but it has sort of ties to a recognition of the history though, but it was not formed under the same sort of thing, but I'll get to that in a second. On his arrival to the colony in 1876, he made an impact as a player in the first season in the new code of football. He took a role on at the club as a committee man and on the revival of the original Adelaide Football Club. The following year, together with Tupeni and George Kennedy and Joseph Osborne, successfully instigated the far-reaching institutional change in the early part of 1877. That resulted in the formation of the South Australian Football Association, the first inkling of what we know today as the SANFL. The new arrangement for organising and managing a football as a collective of clubs for the first time fundamentally changed the course of the game. South Australia thereafter, the SAFA, formed its origins in 1877 and has gone on to become the SANFL, celebrating 140th year in 2017. Tupeni was a very active participant. The formation of the meetings took on part of the role of being a chairman for the first and largely attended meetings of 100 or so men. He then chaired a meeting of the Club of Delegates that established the rules of the association and also the playing rules of the game. It's quite similar sort of time. This was before the VFA, but similar sort of structuring. As I mentioned on previous podcasts, the history of our game. This is also a strong part of the history, and it has a lot to do with football and how it grew, and also in interstate, and also has a proud, rich history, and has helped what the game is, what we know today. Once established, the SAFA was achieved. Tupeni took on a significant role of honorary secretary and participated in the association meetings. In this role, he was proposed with the negotiations with newly formed Victorian Football Association, just as I mentioned, the VFA, and as I've mentioned in previous podcasts. He promoted the game through placing public notices in the Adelaide newspapers about the matches during the season. So that was the first public information shared to the public through the newspapers, which was the news of the time. As well as a major role in SAFA, Tupeni served at Adelaide Football Club as a captain, a committee man, and took over the treasurer role during the season. So this man did a lot of things. Must have been a smart lad, going from being a committee onto the treasury role, and also captain. He's appointed club captain for the season and led the club to a respectable third place on the premiership ladder. More significantly, he proposed and made arrangements for the club to organise an intercolonial club match with St Kilda Football Club. So obviously St Kilda being one of the oldest Victorian clubs, which he negotiated the use of the South Australian Cricket Association, SACA, which controlled the Adelaide Oval, which is one of obviously Adelaide's most beautiful and pristine ovals. He created another major initiative for the South Australian football as he gained the use of the Adelaide Cricket Oval for its first ever football match. Another feature of Tupeni's contribution to the South Australian game was a player and leader and captain. He was Adelaide's most robust and forceful captain leader for the 1877 season. He came to Adelaide in 1876 as a new player. So yeah, that covers Mr. Tupeni, and that starts us off quite well. So those men are the founding men who created this rich history within our state of South Australia, and we don't get told a lot about that. And I know rightly so that Victoria and the VFA, which turned into VFL, no different to how we went from SAFA to the SANFL. These are what built the game that we know today. And that starts us off on a great note. So thank you to those guys who did an amazing job building this game And one of my great reasonings of doing this podcast is that, we don't get told these things, and unless you go out your way to look for it. And I like to show a sign of respect to the people who built this great game. So yeah, that starts off, and then the formation of the South Australian Football Association. 13 South Australian football clubs met in 1877 to develop a set of regulations, establish a governing body from the meeting they held at Prince Alfred Hotel in the city. The South Australian Football Association was established. Those clubs were Adelaide, Bankers, Gawler, Kapunda, Kensington, Port Adelaide, North Adelaide, Prince Alfred College, South Adelaide, South Park, Victorian, Wollonga, Woodville. 8 of these clubs contested in the 1877 Premiership season. So it's quite interesting. And we'll go on to talk about who the winners were in that year. So South Adelaide and Victorian shared the premiership. South Adelaide was the inaugural premier. It shared the position with the Victorian club. So Victorian isn't in Victoria, it's just a name that was here. So so South Adelaide in 1877, and their players with and Captain George Kennedy at the centre. So there's a photo here of them from that time. So yeah, my great grandpa played at South Adelaide. I just won a McGarry medal, and my great uncle is in the team of the century of the club. So and they both won a couple of premierships and are legends of the club, both in the Hall of Fame. And that's my representation from the South Adelaide Football Club. So, yeah, got family ties. And also, the other brothers all played in the SANFL too. So, yeah, that's my other great uncles. South Adelaide maintained a reputation as the best club in the colony, but its process required to share the credit of the 1877 Premiership with the Victorian club. That's not a VFL or Victoria team. There was a team within South Australia that was got the Victorian name. I just want to make that clear. We'll talk about where they were from in South Australia. So yeah, South Australia was clearly the best competition during this course of the season across the country. Lapse of during the season, an inexcusable and a very costly lapse in form, together with one devastating error by a goalkeeper. So they had goalkeepers in a position at this time. In the final match of the season, saw it lose to Victorian, which gave the two clubs an equal record. So they didn't play a finals. It was just like an EPL situation where it was points based. It's often said football is a game of inches, and in South Adelaide's final and most important contest of 1877, one final and terrible error in the final match saw the goalkeeper brought about undoing of South Adelaide's previous perfect record. The goal that resulted in Victorian from its unfortunate mistake is one of the costs to South Adelaide's the honour as unreserved premiership glory. There was one small incident in a game that's created the story of the season and forced South to share premiership glory. South certainly had no luck during the season when it came to goal umpiring. It seemed to have suffered the most of all clubs in this regard. It had endured a draw against Woodville after it kicked a goal and was not recorded. Well, that's a bit rigged. Right. Because the goal umpire was surprisingly inexplicably absent. Right. Well, you need a goal umpire. That's why that's important. So, yeah, the goal would have been given to South Adelaide to win, but much importantly, the premiership in its own right, and the second absence of a goal umpire when South scored a goal. This time, the match against Kingston had no serious consequences, as South scored a massive win in the match. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then, so Kennedy was one of the prime movers in the revolution, and that was in the 1877 South Australian football season. This was a year organised competition under the administration and the inaugurated South Australian Football Association. It created a strong societal force for the adoption of football, as well as organised a splendidly publicised and first-rate feature of a sporting calendar within the colony. So this is a long time ago. This was very early in the country's starting and the birth of stuff. So this goes back to a long time ago. The club was fortunate to have a strong administration from a prominent Adelaide identities from the colonial establishment circles. Captain Kennedy was blessed with a number and very best footballers in the colony, particularly champion goal kicker William Deadman. A strong man and a key forward, brother Kirk Kennedy, a key defender Sam Wallace, and midfield extraordinaire Arnie Mertens. These prodigious football talents had plenty of excellent support amongst the other men, as the team's strength was paramount, as players such as R. Albson and Tom Blinman and Edward Colby, together with Fred Stacey and W. Shaw and Green, Curtis and Arthur Jones. Ben Mehrens made the team almost invincible in comparison to his opponents. South Adelaide played in the dark and blue Guernsey and Nick Bocker's blue and white striped hose, and the cap, and played matches in the South Parklands. This is where the intersection of Hutt Street and South Terrace is. So many people know where Hutt Street and South Terrace in Adelaide, in the city. This is where they played football. This is where their home oval was, and I think somewhere down there they still play football. I know there's some Adelaide Lutheran play down there somewhere. Don't know if that's the same bit, but somewhere down there. South covered itself in glory and had a previous season achieved a political success, unlike the 1876 season. However, it shared honours with the Victorian club, which is a surprising result, inflicted South's only defeat of the season in a final disappointing match. During the season, South was criticised by a local newspaper and football writers for playing the man too much, so they liked the contact instead of the ball, but it was generally acknowledged that this feature of the play decreased as season progressed. South Adelaide claimed a forfeit against the Bankers, which played 13 matches, 2 against each side of the association, and had only 1 goal scored against it for the whole season. The team owed its success and quality of players and skillful management by the captain of South, and the players were closest in style to the visiting Victorian club teams and training disciplines, and the style played by adopted was a defensive, and there was a strong reliance on the backman in the team. So a great team that has a great defense, even to this modern day, generally are always good and great. You look at Hawthorn, great defensive lineup at the moment in the AFL. Other clubs that can build a defense can always turn it into a good midfield and attack. So yeah, this many of the club's victories were attributed to the fine goal kicking of William Deadman, one of the finest all-round players in the colony. The best players of the season were nominated for the Australian Star by the Australian Star newspaper were William Deadman, Kirk Kennedy, Sam Wallace, and Arnie Mertens, all identified as Class 1 players. They were followed by Class 2 players, and also, just the players that I mentioned there. They went from number to number. The top goal kicker of the association obviously was William Deadman with 10 goals. So he was followed within the club of Kirk Kennedy with 3 goals. So, yeah. So, yeah, the inaugural association season, as I mentioned, was shared. We just talked a bit about them. South scored 8 less. So here we go. So the South played every team in the association twice, apart from receiving a forfeit against Bankers. They had only 1 goal scored against it. Critically, all lost 1 match to Victorian. South scored 8 less goals than Victorian and 9 less than Adelaide, but both of these clubs scored 12 and 13 goals respectively from its wins. Bankers was by far the weakest team in the competition. South maintained its reputation as one of the best clubs in the colony, and a process to require to share the credit of the 1870 premiership, like I sort of said. October 2 held the second annual dinner, which was postponed to a big match of the Victorian club. We're sort of just going to squeeze through this here. The captain, Mr. Kennedy, was praised for his excellent management of the team and players and acknowledged for maintaining reputation of the club. Mr. George Downs, the Victorian captain, attended also. So they went to a dinner. And talked about the season. So that was the first annual dinner. Also on October 17, Exchange Room of Adelaide Town Hall. It was excellent dinner provided by Mr. Coombe, also the Haverstock Hotel, which referred to the progress made during the season. The association greatly influenced by the progress of football, and it provided the means of placing the game within South Australia on an equal basis with Melbourne and Victoria. So yeah, we obviously the state next to Victoria, South Australia. And it's one of our rivals, and this is the start of football within South Australia, and also it shows to you also the how football built in this country, and it's sort of So the following season, he made a mention that there had been some disputes between clubs during the season, but hoped that they would all bond and football would triumph. South Adelaide and Victorian expected other clubs in the next season would press for the premier position. And so that sort of explains that one. So that's quite a cool bit of history and explains the first ever season. And so there was a first intercolonial match, the Victorian club, which is in South Australia still. So I know people are going to get mixed up with that. Became the first to play an intercolonial match on August 11th when it was organised by a Melbourne club, which came over, which I think the Victoria, which is the club here in South Australia, lost the match by 1-0 on the exhibition ground. That was followed shortly by a visit by the St Kilda Football Club. So there must have been the Melbourne Football Club to start with, and then St Kilda Football Club to play Adelaide Football Club on August 28th in the first game ever played on the ground, which must have been Adelaide Oval. And Adelaide lost the match 5-2. So obviously, Victoria interstate, they were obviously quite good and got a lot more players to pick from. But a close game to start with. Second goal, a bit more of a harder amount of points. So as you could imagine, being back in 1877 in the horse and cart days, and you'd come all the way over from interstate. I don't know how long it took them, but imagine coming over from interstate, and then you're on horse and cart for, I don't know, say probably 2 weeks or 3 weeks, God knows how long. And you come into South Australia and you play the first ever. So that was like an interstate game, but they call it intercolonial. So it must have each state was still a colony at the time, I'm assuming. So that's quite interesting. So So yeah, in 1877 also there was a football tragedy. Charles Paul from the Bankers Club became the first and only player ever to be killed from his injuries sustained in a SANFL match. He was injured in a match against South Park early in the season, so we'll just quickly talk about that. Rest in peace, mate. It's pretty sad. The only player to how old our football game is. Like I said, in 1877, he's the first and only person that has passed away due to injuries within the league. So very sad to hear that, and we don't hear about that a real lot. So yeah, we'll talk about that. The Bankers Football Club gained an existence in 1877, thus became a historic founding member of the SANFL. The Bankers became the only club in the SANFL to substantially the South Australian Football League to be formed other than geographical basis. This means the experience of the Bankers Football Club, significant history of the game in South Australia is an important lesson for those who follow the game. So I personally never knew of this club, so I did the research at the moment and given this information now. So it's a good history lesson for people, not even someone myself knew. So yeah, the Bankers Football Club is a significant club and also history within South Australia. During the inaugural season of the SANFL, one of the players died as a result of injury sustained in a match, and the anti-football sentiment that arose had been potential to stop football as a societally acceptable sport in its very first season. So obviously, no one wants to see someone get hurt. So that had a direct impact on the society. But football survived and went on to prosper as indication of the popularity of the game and the beginning of organised competition. The lasting legacy of this club, and that no other club has since participated in the senior football league competition of the colonial/state by district or geographical representation. So yeah, that's just a quick little brief thing about that. And yeah, it's sad that the man passed away playing a hard game. It must have been hard back in the day. Like, football was always harder back in the day, but it's still a hard game till today, as we learnt from concussions and all those sorts of types of stuff. Whether it's not obviously good, but it's unfortunately part of being a physical game, and the players take a risk every time they go onto the ground, but they love the game and they're doing something they love, and it's a thing that we obviously cherish our game, but understand the fundamentals and how it's physical and the impacts it has on the body and what it takes to be a footballer. It's our national sport, and also you could see how much it was popular, and this man's legacy lives on through till today. So rest in peace, mate, and the legacy that those players built this game on. I'd just like to say thank you and have all the respect in the world. And yeah, we wouldn't be here today without the sacrifices of people that help build the country and also defend our country with our defence forces, and who keep the country running through emergency service. It's not football related, but thank you to all those people. And also thank you to this guy and the association for, obviously it would have been hard at the time, and it's good that we've got till now, and we haven't had any more deaths, and it's sad this guy passed away, but also at the same time we've been lucky and we've had no deaths since, and the rules would have been a lot more structured and organised, obviously, after an incident like this. So yeah, rest in peace, mate. So we are into the 1878 season. Nord joined the SANFL and also won a premiership in its first season. So quite impressive. That's Nord that we know today. So yeah, for you guys who go to the gather round, Nord, the oval that you'll go to, so and watch the game. Can't remember who's on the game this time of year, but I did go watch the first gather round. I seen Hawthorn play GWS there. Great game. Nord joined the SANFL, so obviously in 1878. So a little bit after, just after the Port Adelaide and a few other clubs. And yeah, Woodville and the Bankers dropped out of the competition in 1878. Unfortunately, they just, I'll quickly just check on that to see why. The colony got stronger as a group of talented footballers ready to enhance their reputation. Yeah. Essentially, they just, things changed. And the delegates changed over. And other teams. There's also divisions racked the club. So, a meeting was called for Woodville. There was a few clubs just changed. So they had reports, internal reports, and the club those clubs folded essentially. So in 1878, Adelaide Oval was used for the SANFL club matches for the first time, and in the opening round of the new club, Nord defeated reigning premiers South Adelaide. So 1878, they had the first game at Adelaide Oval and opened up the season and played many matches there. So 1879, I believe Nord won a premiership again. The first SANFL club to visit Victoria. The Victorian club became the first SANFL club to venture across the border to play Victoria in matches against Melbourne-based clubs, obviously like St Kilda and Melbourne. The first association intercolonial match, I sort of briefly mentioned these, but I'm just going through the timeline. The first match was played between South Australia, SANFL, and the Victorian VFA. Melbourne, the 1st of July, 1879. Nord player Alf McMichael had the honour of becoming South Australia's first intercolonial captain in a match which was lost 7-14 to 0-3. So a bit of gap in the skill and talent there. Obviously, VFA had obviously a good team. And we had a lot smaller population. 1800, Nord must have won again because it's sort of come up again. The first association intercolonial match in Adelaide was the SANFL versus the VFA. Was played in Adelaide, 2 matches on the August 14th and also August 21st. Both won by the VFA. So they were quite dominant to start. So the VFA versus SANFL, so each state versing each other. So Victoria took out the early awards there. So Nord must have won again in 1881. The Fowler Cup, the only SANFL 1877 to 1906 premiership trophy ever presented, was known as the Fowler Cup. After its donor, it was won by the Nord and since remained the property of the club. So SANFL's home grounds. So this is just as every club started getting home grounds a bit more. Port Adelaide's matches moved from Glanville to Alberton Oval. So that's the birth of Alberton Oval. And the Port Adelaide Football Club, who they trained on, I was lucky enough to play on that ground. How I got that Guernsey, obviously to my right, sorry. And also there for players that train and do all their pre-season hard work on that wonderful, lovely oval, and the rich history stuff. So that goes all the way back to 1881. So also, Montefiore Hill Ground remained the home ground for the Victorian club. South Parklands was the home of South Park Club. South Parklands was the home of South Adelaide. And the East Parklands was the home of the Nord Football Club. So probably closer to where Cooper Stadium is along the parade. 1882, Nord won again. So on a roll. The new club, Royal Park joined the SAFA and did not last the season before disbanding. So in and out like a flash. Nord's sixth premiership. Nord won 6 consecutive premierships. The club achieved a wonderful milestone in the history of South Australian football, as it became the first to defeat Turin Victorian club Essendon, the VFA Premier of 1882, and was defeated by Nord 5-5 to 1-6. So obviously the Nord team developed into a great team, and they went on to beat the premiers of the Victorian VFA. So yeah, it's the first time a South Australian team went over and beat the Vics. So yeah, a bit of history there. Early premiership for the Essendon Football Club. And also Nord went over there and beat them. So some really good history there. So yeah, Port's new colours. Port Adelaide changed. So 1883, Port Adelaide changed its colours from a rose pink cap to a jersey to a hose with a white kicker box and a magnator and blue jersey hose. So yeah, this is before Port Adelaide we know today, or with the previous history of the black and white prison bars. So yeah, the new club name for Victorian club. The change of club did not alter the team colours of the black and gold. Victorian club changed its name to North Adelaide, and it remained in the SAFA until 1884. So there you go. The Victorian club that I was mentioning that's not in Victoria changed the name to North Adelaide and then disbanded obviously in 1884. 1884 was Port Adelaide's first premiership win, I believe. They've got them in the photo. I'm just assuming every time they've had a photo, they were the premiership winners. So yeah, first premiership for Port Adelaide was in 1884. Won its first premiership to break Nord's domination of the competition. For those who don't know, Port Adelaide and Nord have a rivalry like none other, and it's one of the closest rivalry within the AFL. And as you can see, Nord's domination early and Port's first premiership. They were the first team to break that, and that's where we're at. That's the first history of it. The 20 June holiday matches teams of Port Adelaide and Nord on Adelaide Oval. Port achieved 2 wins, a draw, and 1 loss in the 1884 contests. So yeah, there you go. Port fans and the history of that. That's Port Adelaide's first premiership. So yeah, 1885, South Adelaide won. So yeah, they were quite big as well. Obviously, Nord just had their consecutive amount of wins. And then Port Adelaide come in to win. But yeah, it was so rounding out South Adelaide with 2 premierships. And that's where we got up to 1885. Yeah, 14 competition. The association was reduced to just 4 clubs. The demise of the South Park and the North Adelaide, the Victorian called club. It wasn't Victorian. I just want to make that clear. That's for some reason they had that on there. The newly constituted Adelaide joined Port Adelaide, Nord, and South Adelaide, making it a 14 competition. And here we go. Some cool facts. So in 1885, the first SAFA Aboriginal match, which represented the Indigenous people of Australia. SAFA SAFA Secretary John Creswell created some innovative programming for the season that included a combined Indigenous team from Rjukan, the point of Ngakleri, which was an Aboriginal mission station, and a Pundani mission station, playing 2 matches on the Adelaide Oval in an Aboriginal cultural exhibition, which will stage on the Oval on the evening of the first match. So, there was 15 Ngarrindjeri men from the touring party of Adelaide, from Rjukan of the Point Macleary Aboriginal Station, from the historic match. So they've got a photo and I think a sketch showing the 1885 Adelaide Oval Aboriginal cultural performance. So that's pretty cool for all my Indigenous mates out there. Just shout out to all of you. And that represents the first match within South Australia that had Indigenous people playing together on Adelaide Oval. So must have been a big thing for the time. And it's great to see them represented and playing the great game that we played today. And they have a rich history of great players, as you can see in my background, from Andrew McLeod to Cyril and to Buddy up there. And, Brownlow medalists like Adam Goods and, great players. I could name heaps of them. Jeffrey Farmer, who could take a hanger. And, just many great names. And that's the first represented game in South Australia that did that. And it's probably a thing that not many people know. And I'm proud to sort of say that thing today, that that's something that was done. And I hope this sounds like they were represented quite well playing on Adelaide Oval. And just it's a cool thing in 1885 that I thought I'd really mention and go through and talk about it. So I'll keep following the timeline now. The first SANFL game under lights. The first game of football under lights was played when Adelaide and South Adelaide played at Adelaide Oval on Thursday, July 2nd. So the lighting techniques used for Adelaide Oval and South Adelaide match. So they had like these big lights that almost were on tripod stands, big crowds at night looking over the game, which was quite interesting and cool. So first ever game under lights in 1885. And the birth of night football within South Australia. So how cool is that? Adelaide's premiership success. The Adelaide Football Club won its first and only premiership. This is not the Adelaide Football Club we know today. They unfortunately deceased. But if this club kept carrying on through, that could have went to today. But they also show a nod. You might see Adelaide do a heritage. I'm talking about the Adelaide Crows. They might do a heritage game where they'll have this Guernsey, which is a shout out to that and the history of that club. The first 100-game player, Adam Pettigrew, South Park from 1877 to 1884, and also 1885 and 1886 became the first SANFL player to reach 100 games milestone. So like a tough guy with a mo. 1887 Nord won 3 new clubs. So Hothman, Gawler, Albion, and West Adelaide joined the SANFL, and West Adelaide only lasted 1 season. West Adelaide must come back because they're obviously the Bloods in West Adelaide. Goal kicking milestone. Alf Bushby of Adelaide became the first player to reach 25 goals in a season. Nord in 1888. The Medindi Football Club was admitted into the SANFL. It was their first season. Medindi is a very wealthy suburb in Adelaide. I think it's one of the most expensive areas in Adelaide. I built a tennis court in there, very lovely place, and they had very nice people there. So shout out to those people. The first international matches, were played in Adelaide with a visit of an English football team and played in Nord from Port Adelaide and South Adelaide. So they played against an international team from an English football team. So I don't know how that worked, whether they come over here and they just played some. Yeah, we'll quickly click into that and just go through that. So yeah, I find that quite interesting. An English team to play both rugby union and the Australianised game. So yeah, it showed. So they played both of that. Lillywhite convinced the venture that cost £12,000 for the time, and the success on the tour certainly depended on the quality of Englishmen could bring to the colonised rules. So yeah, obviously, in a marvellous venture for football, an international match was played between England and South Adelaide. England team versing South Adelaide. The scores were 8 goals 9 to 4 goals 7. Obviously, yeah, South Adelaide won. And yeah, the English played Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide beat them 7 goals 5 to 4 goals 6. And yeah, Adelaide beat England 5 goals 12 to 3 goals 5. So yeah, obviously Adelaide were quite good. Nord went on to beat them 3 goals 7 to 3 goals 1. So closer game. Yeah, so that sort of explains it. I guess the guys that come over from England played rugby but wanted to see how they could go. This was real early when the game was sort of changing and blending from rugby to a mixture of different type rules. As I explained in the rules, South Australia had quite similar rules to Victoria, and they were just tinkering with the game, and it seemed like it was reasonably successful. Costing £12,000 back in those days. I'm not sure the equivalent that you could say that equaled to now, obviously with inflation. But that's the first ever international match on Australian shores against English people. So yeah, the Championships of Australia. South Australian Premier team Nord defeated the VFA Premier South Melbourne in 3 successive matches to become the champions of Australia. So this Nord team in 1888 went on to beat the VFA Premier South Melbourne to take out the inaugural Australian Championships, which means it's the team of the country. So yeah, it's a bit of rich history there. 1889, obviously, Nord won the first premiership final. The first premiership match to determine the premiership was played with 2 clubs that tied on 14 wins. Nord defeated Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval on October 5th, 7 goals 3 to 5 goals 9. So there you go. Once again, proving that Nord and Port Adelaide had a great, rich history against each other. So here we go. The first Indigenous player in the SANFL. Harry Hewitt has been identified as the first Aboriginal player in the SANFL. He played for the Medindi Football Club, and the following week, Alfred Spence became the second to play as he joined Hewitt in the Medindi team. So shout out the Medindi team. They were the first team to have Indigenous players play for them, and some rich history there. So there you go. So they were the first players, and these are the things that we should all learn as a country, and also especially in South Australia, we should cherish our history, and not many people would know about these little small facts, and that's why I want to do podcasts, because I think that's important, not only to me, but also people that love football, and it's a great thing that we can talk about and should be celebrated. So 1890, Port Adelaide won. The last ever match of the SANFL matches in Gawler. So yeah, the Gawler's final season. South Australia's first intercolonial victory. After a 9-year gap, SAFA played in intercolonial match with the VFA in Melbourne. After 9 consecutive losses, South Australia won its first intercolonial match against VFA. This was like a state game match, as I've mentioned before. So they beat VFA after 9 consecutive losses. And the scores were 6 goals 8 to 4 goals 6. And the team was spotted in a new red and white blue uniform. So obviously our state is blue, red and yellow. Which is sort of, you can see our angel cloud there. That's the colour of our state and our flag. But there was still not that colour yet. And still it was still called the intercolonial matches. So Port Adelaide, champions of Australia. Port Adelaide won its second premiership and defeated South Melbourne to win its first ever Australian championships, to be the best club in the country. So there in 1890. So some rich history there. The goal-kicking milestone, Jack McKenzie of Port Adelaide became the first player to kick more than 50 goals in a season with 54. So it took to 1890 to have a player kick 50 goals. So yeah, I mean, you look at how hard it is to kick goals now. Imagine back then. 1891, Nord won. South Australia's first non-European intercolonial player. So Alf Hamid became the first South Australian intercolonial footballer from a non-European cultural background for a match against the VFA on Adelaide Oval. So he must have been like the first guy at the intercolonial player that actually was born in Australia. So this is don't forget, this is a long time ago. 1892, South Adelaide won. North versus South Country match. SAFA arranged the first ever North versus South Country match. It was reported the most important match for the country football in the colony. 4 Indigenous players were the first to represent South Country. The inaugural North versus South match. Harry Hewitt, William Rankin, James Rankin, John Wilson from Rookan, and Point Maliri and Mission Station. So I'm assuming these Rankins may be related to Isaac Rankin. I'm not too sure. Rankin family is quite a big family. And yeah, so some rich history there. I'm not sure if they're related or not. I would assume that they are. So yeah, shout out to you, Isaac, mate. Hope you watched. There's some history there. The most Indigenous players for the SAFA club. The Mudindi became the first club to include 3 Indigenous players for its team. So there you go. Quite cool. Harry Hewitt, John Wilson both played at Mudindi together, alongside William Rankin. Nord's captaincy record. Alf Waldon set the record for the most years as Nord captain with his 9th season in 1881. 1893, South Adelaide played. Adelaide SAFA final, one of the original SAFA clubs. Adelaide played its final season. That's the end of the club, of the Adelaide Football Club. Not the club that we know today, but the one they pay homage to. Change the name. The Mudindi club changed its name to North Adelaide, so that must be the North Adelaide that we know today. The match, the goal kicking record. Anthony Daly broke the record and most goals in a match, with 23 in a match. Wow, there you go. 1894 Nord became a 4-team competition with the colours of Nord, South Adelaide, Port Adelaide and North Adelaide. South Australia's Football Association first published football song. In 1894, the song titled Leather Spear was published and made available by the South Australian Football Association. So that was their first ever theme song, I guess. South Adelaide again in 1895. So quite dominant by South Adelaide. It was either there wasn't many clubs, so they're obviously the choice. But you had Nord, had their stretch. South were in between, winning a few, and they were the inaugural winners. And Port Adelaide, obviously tuned in with a few as well. The new SAFA club, the Natives club, joined the SAFA, the increased competition to 5. 1896, South Adelaide. 1897. Wow. So now we're in the 1897 to 1916. So Port Adelaide won the first premiership in 1890. The first lot of premierships in this next bracket of the timeline. So 1897, Port Adelaide won. The electorate system was introduced. The electorate system was introduced at a SANFL meeting in April 15th of 1897. Although players already were clubs allowed to remain respective with the district that they reside in. So yeah, they must have had an electorate system sort of put players into the clubs. New club, junior club, West Adelaide joined the SANFL to increase the competition to 6 clubs. So that must have been the birth of West Adelaide. New name for natives. So the natives club changed its name to West Torrens. New scoring system was changed. Behinds were included in the score for the first time. It did not take long for the rules to change to older match outcomes. The result of the match, May 15, saw Nord defeat Port Adelaide 3-11 to 4-2. So I don't know. I think they had points before. I don't know what's going on there. The first Aboriginal player for West Adelaide, B. Wilson, became the first Indigenous player for the SANFL club. 1898, South Adelaide, the first Magarey medalist. So, as we know, the Magarey medal that we know today in the SANFL and also previous history was the first of 1898. SANFL's Best and Fairest award, the Magarey medal, was first awarded to Nord's Albie Green. The medal is the oldest individual football award in Australian football. So it was before the Brownlow medal, and has the honours as being one of the oldest medals and awards in the country. Mr. William Magarey, as the new Vice President, offered the trophy to present to close out the season to the best player of that year, whose opinion was from majority of the umpires and played the fairest and most brilliant football. So the birth of that, so we've seen a bit of controversy now with the Brownlow and how umpires can see the stats after the game. Yeah, should we keep it traditional? Maybe. These awards are an old reward, and it's based on history, and sometimes things shouldn't change and should be kept. Just my view on that one. The new oval, the Jubilee Oval, was used for SANFL matches for the first time. First finals program in 1898, so the program that was given out and handed before the games. That's what you can get, the footy AFL record. You can still get that till today. You can learn the players and their numbers and who they are. South Adelaide's captaincy record, Jack Redmond was set the record for the most seasons as South Adelaide captain with 9 from 1988. Up to 1988. I think that must have been when another captain come through. 1899, South Adelaide. The electoral system was made compulsory for all players. So in the 1899, the boundaries were enforced under electorate system. All players were compelled to play for the club representing the district that they were resided in. The dominant club for the last decade, South Adelaide, lost many players because of its players to rival clubs, so they stripped them of their club. And that's when the zoning started happening, and that's to what we got today with clubs and where you play for, where you're near. You as a junior, I was lucky enough that I was in Port Adelaide zone. I got the privilege to play for them. That's just my background on that. A change of the players and numbers. So the team numbers were changed from 20 to 18. So there was less on the ground. So that's the formation of what we got today. So it hasn't really changed much from there till that was 1899. The first match against the VFL. The SANFL played a first in colonial match against the new Victorian Football League, the VFL, which was formed in 1897. Introduction of the challenge final. The first time the final was included the opportunity to challenge for the final. For the minor premier, if it lost, the minor premier South Adelaide lost to Nord. In the final match, it was reversed the outcome. So they sort of battled it out. Port Adelaide's first Magarey medalist, Stan Mullane, became the first Port Adelaide player to win the Magarey medal in 1899. North Adelaide won in the 1900, first player to reach 200 games. John Redmond, I believe he was the guy that we were talking about before. So yeah, Nord in 1901. Sturt joined the SAFA in 1901. It's a great Sturt team that we know today, the Double Blues. 2 new ovals. The only and Nord's ovals were used for the very first time. So there you go, 1901. Only oval, and obviously Nord's, like I did mention, I must have mentioned Cooper Stadium. Well, this is the first time they were made, and they were both created, and the rich history of those two clubs. The first win against the VFL in 1901, the SAFA achieved this victory, 6 goals 11 to 5 goals 5. North Adelaide's first Magarey medalist, Phil Sandland. North Adelaide obviously won the premiership. So the black and white for the Port Adelaide Football Club in 1902. The Port Adelaide Football Club adopted its renowned black and white colours and finished the minor round as premiers, but refused to play its semi-final with the umpire knee-bone officiating. Port was disqualified by the SAFA and placed third. So must have been some controversy with that, and they didn't want to play that. So that was the birth of the black and white Port Adelaide Magpies that we have today. New final system was adopted, incorporated. They changed the challenge system. 1903, Port Adelaide won. So Port Adelaide's uniform changed due to clash of colours with Port Adelaide. Became the first club to wear its uniforms inside out in matches against South Adelaide. So there you go. That was the day that the clash ones changed. Obviously, Sturt's first Magarey medalist, Ruckman Hendrik Taffy Way, became Sturt's first Magarey medalist. Nord in 1904. Disputes impacted the season in 1904. There was no player matches on Adelaide Oval. Jubilee Oval was used instead. Dispute between SAFL and VFL over gate sharing and interstate matches. So yeah, just a bit of stuff going on there. Hindmarsh Oval was West Torrens' move to its home ground of Hindmarsh Oval. South Australia played the VFA. South Australia played its interstate matches against the VFA instead of the VFL. There must have been a bit of a dispute there between the two states. 1906, the Australian Football Council, SAFA, became the inaugural member of the South Australian Council. First triple Magarey medalist, Tom McKenzie, became the first player to win 3 Magarey medals. He had previously been with West Torrens for the first Magarey medalist. So there you go, triple winner. Change from association to a league. SAFA was renamed the South Australian Football League, SANFL, in 1907. Nord was the first premiership winner there. New colours for South Australian team. The interstate matches have changed from colours from black and white to purple and white. So yeah, just a mixture of stuff. We're just going to go through a few things here. I had caps for the premiers. First Australasian Football Carnival. South Australia participated in the first Football Carnival, which was played in Melbourne. West Adelaide won championships of the Commonwealth. So Commonwealth Championship, they're the best team in the Commonwealth, which the first leader of the 3-time premiership, West Adelaide premiership coach Jack Redmond became. So this guy was leading game holder, and he's become the first to lead 3 SANFL clubs to premierships once it's been changed. We're just sort of jogging through a few things here. The first Indigenous player for South Adelaide was in 1910, Hibbert Tripp. Adelaide was the first club to play matches in Western Australia. First team to visit Western Australia. 1911, West Adelaide won. South Australia won the Australian Football Carnival in 1911. The first use of numbers on Guernseys were in 1911. So yeah, we're just going to go through this. The introduction of football budget. So they were given a budget to provide spectators with information on it. So that's like the record that I was talking about. Adelaide's record-breaking season won its 8th premiership, defeated Carlton on October 3 to win its 4th championships of Australia. This season was notable for Adelaide winning every single game, including the final game of the best of the rest state as well. Jack Ashley won the Magarey medal, so they're absolutely dominant. They didn't lose a game, and they beat everyone else interstate. There was the first coach that was umpires. Yeah, so we're in the 1915. Sturt won its first premiership. The first SANFL player killed in World War One. So rest in peace, mate, defending this great country. Phil Robin Nordwingen was the first SANFL player that was killed in defending Australia in World War One while serving in Gallipoli. So rest in peace, mate. So that was the first ever player that honoured his country in war. Unfortunately, lost his life. Yeah, there you go. That's in 1915. So rest in peace, mate. Yeah, South Adelaide's first Magarey medalist. Surprising they won so much, but early on, but didn't have a Magarey medalist. The league football, it was suspended in 1916 and 1918 due to the high losses of players to the war, and it was replaced by an unaffiliated league, the Patriotic Football Association. So there you go. The people had to stay in the country that didn't that were in central services like policemen and stuff like that, and firemen. They played a football association, and then it wasn't till 1990 that football resumed after the war. And Sturt received its 1915 premiership commemoration, pennant. Well, they got a pennant to get, so it was delayed because of the war, so for 4 years. So so the most extended final series in South Australia's football history was played in 1919, where North Adelaide challenged the final, with Sturt and North Adelaide were both playing against each other because of the draws, and Sturt won the replay to win its second premiership. The new club Glenelg was formed in 1921. Yeah, new headquarters. So the only players to win 3 successive Magarey medals. Dan Moriarty, South Adelaide's champion, centre half back. So quite a good player. 1990, 1920, and 1921, the first players. So we're just going to go through stuff quite quick. First South Adelaide player to reach 200 games is John Treadray. I'm not sure if that's Warren Treadray's relative. To new oval, West Torrens moved from Highmarsh Oval to Thebarton Oval, where the Crows' home ground will be, where their training facilities moved to. So that's how old that oval is. The first Premiership Shield was in 1924, which handed the Premiership Shield to them. It wasn't a cup at this time. Glenelg's first win, 1925. West Torrens' first Premiership, also in 1924. First interstate victory in Perth, so first game that we won in 1925. So just go through this quickly because it's quite a long podcast, so I just want to go through. So obviously, introduction of the 19th man was in 1930. Subjective to the 19th man replace an injured player. So there was a sub back then. There you go. Interstate colours. So 1930 was the first time they had the South Australian colours that we know today as red, blue, and yellow. First player, 1930s, the first player to kick 100 goals, Ken Farmer. So there you go, of North Adelaide. The finals system was introduced in 1931, so that's like how you get to the grand final. Glenelg's first premiership in 1934. So yeah, we're just gonna sort of 1935, Point Pearce Indigenous team played the Premiers, so South Adelaide played against them in the first match. With a proper with the team playing an Indigenous team. So that's quite rich amount of history there. And just skipping through my notes. So we just flying through it here, just trying to get through to, it's quite a big one. I might break this into a part 2, and we'll sort of carry from the 1930s onwards. It's just such a big podcast, so we're gonna make this a part 2, and we're gonna talk from the 1930s onwards. So this is gonna be chunked in. I didn't realize how long it was gonna be, and it's gonna take. I want to do it. I want to explain everything properly. I want to break it down and just talk about it, and honor the rich history. And we hit the hour mark, so I really want to just I'm gonna put this together, and we're gonna do a part 2 of this. So thinking of this on the fly, I think that's the right thing to do. There's so much rich history. So thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed, and part 2 will be out soon. I'm gonna do Collingwood draft chats next. So thank you, everyone.